Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. This is our WWE show. My name is George Coles. This is my tag team partner, Steve Blackman.
Thanks, Al Snow.
And before we get into the show, you might notice we're a little bit dressed different than we normally do. Well, not too much different. This is coming out the week of Halloween, so we figured we'd dress up for Halloween. Ain't that right, Big Bubba?
You're right, Mick.
Anyway, first off, we're going to start off with the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. The first match of the night, which was a solid match, Alberto Del Rio versus Randy Orton.
After, watching this match, I was like, man, this would be the match to beat tonight. And it was one of the matches to beat. I would say it was the highest on the pay-per-view, but we'll get to that later on.
Yeah. And then after that, we had the tag team title match, Team Hell No versus the Rhodes Scholars. I thought it was a decent match. I hope they continue their feud. They're two of the better teams in the WWE. I like the build that they have going for the Rhodes Scholars now.
I'm a big firm follower of Team Hell No. I really like them both.
Well, they're both really good. They should be broken up at some point, though, to go into the main event picture, both of them.
Yeah.
Then after that, we had a Miz versus Kofi, the rematch for the Intercontinental title. Much better match than they put on main event about a week and a half ago.
I thought this was probably, at that point, I thought it was the high point of the night, too. I mean, it was just so close each time. I mean, Miz worked as a perfect heel. He actually worked more as a bullying heel, and I liked that.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Plus, it showed that Kofi could do a little bit more psychology in his work instead of just being a spot monkey. The next match of the night, and I'm sorry if we're running through these quick, we got a lot to cover. The next match of the night was Antonio Cesaro versus Justin Gabriel.
Cesaro never fails to impress.
No, and it really, to me, it built them both, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I thought Cesaro looked great, and I also thought that Justin Gabriel looked great as a good opponent. He looked like he fit in there with the United States champion.
I just love the forearm from the outside.
Yeah.
One of the best parts of the night.
Then we had another tag team match, which I don't know why this match was further up on the card than the tag team championship, but the Primetime Players versus Rey Mysterio and Sin Cara, or
Team Bachos Duos.
El Bachos Duos. She botched the name.
You don't always have to throw the L in there. It means the...
Yeah, well, I mean...
whatever.
It's like a Team El Stereotypico. A decent match.
It had probably the nastiest botch of the night, though.
When Sin Cara landed on his head, but all in all, he ended up being okay, so...
It just
works
right
out.
on the top of it, too. Bam!
Then after that, we had my favorite match of the night. Sheamus versus The Big Show. Why, you're shaking your head over there like you don't think it was a good match.
Oh, I think it was a great match. I mean, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have given it the match of the night. The match of the night, to me, still was probably Miz and Kofi. And I'm not a big follower of both of them. I like them both, but I just think they put a better match on.
If you laid it down on paper, this would have been the match I would have put as the very last on it.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys came out and told a tremendous story. Kudos to Show. Kudos to Sheamus, who... In 2012, I think Sheamus is the most improved wrestler on any show. Ring of Honor, TNA, WWE. I think he's the most improved just this year.
Yeah, I will give you that, but it's sad that he was already the world champion and in the main event spot as he's trying to get better. Yeah. He should have been at this level when he won.
When he first won the championship and all, they didn't have as much people build up for the main event as they do now. But coming off of that, we had a little backstage segment. Was a show.
It was Team Broski.
Yeah, Zack Ryder
and Santino Marella, and they were all dressed up.
Santino was Lady Gaga. And I forget what. Oh, Zack Ryder was dressed like a witch, making fun of Eve, which led us to the
damn
Ron Simmons appearance.
I was gonna say that one for you, but.
Yeah, you got it. I'll let you have it. Anyway, I got the better costume.
Yeah, I'll give you that one too.
Then the next match we had the Divas Championship 3-way, Eve versus Layla versus Caitlyn, which was kind of to put the show on a roller coaster. It built up after the Sheamus and Show match, then they brought it back down before the main event. It was your standard. You could see this every Monday night Divas match, so it wasn't nothing special. Which led us to the main event of the pay-per-view, Ryback versus CM Punk.
Honestly, everybody's been bitching about the end of the match. I think they worked it out perfectly.
Well, here's the thing that everybody isn't taking into account. It was never supposed to be Ryback versus Punk. It was supposed to be Cena versus Punk. And when they couldn't go with Cena, they went with Ryback. So they had to find a way to make it where Ryback doesn't lose the streak, but CM Punk doesn't lose the title either. And to me, it was more surprising than a screw job from Heyman or Brock Lesnar or anybody else.
I didn't see it coming. I'll be honest with you.
So I'll give him the surprise factor, and then he tossed the referee Brad Maddox into the cage, and you thought that was the spot of the night.
Oh, I mean, jeez, man, that flew.
And then I was legitimately scared as a human, not as a wrestling fan. As a human, when Ryback and CM Punk went on top of the Hell in a Cell, which is, I'd say about 5, 6, at least 5 or 6 feet taller than the old Hell in a Cell structure. I just was hoping that neither of them get hurt because I do enjoy both of their work.
And that was the thing. I mean, I was like goosebumps. Man, I'm like, man, I wouldn't want to be up that high.
No, they're good 20 feet from the ground. One wrong move and you're ending your career, maybe even your life.
Punk made Ryback look great, and Ryback made himself look great and he helped with Punk. Yeah. You know, I thought it was a great match, and I thought it had the perfect ending. You didn't destroy him as a monster, and you didn't take the belt from Punk.
Now, I mean, that's what would you give the pay-per-view overall? I'd say a good 3.5 stars.
I would go with that too. I mean, there were some slow points. The women's match could have been a lot better. Some of the cheesier stuff in it, but I would say I would go with a 4-star.
I think it played out more. A lot of the show played out like a Raw episode instead of playing out like a pay-per-view. Now, coming off of that, we have our question of the week last week. Now, last week, Vicky Guerrero was named the GM position, whatever they're calling it now. Mm-hmm. And the question we had was, who do you think should be the GM instead of Vicky? Now, we got a couple answers from friends of ours. This first one's from Paul, Panda Bear Pickett over at the Deadly Sins. Anyone would have been better than Vicky. She needs to get off my TV. As much as I would have liked to see Heyman as the GM, with what's going on with his line with Punk, I don't think it's going to happen. I'd like to see Stone Cold or Shawn Michaels as the GM. What do you think about that? I thought that was a great idea.
Michaels did good with it before when he had it.
So did Stone Cold when he was a sheriff overall.
Badges?
Two very good, solid selections. I don't know how much either one of them wants to be a full-time wrestler or full-time on the show, but that can make it better if they're only there. Instead of being there every week, they're only there every once in a while. Now we got another answer from Lou over at the Deadly Sins, Paul's partner on the podcast, and also in a lot of the videos. He put Heyman all the way. They need him like really bad. Vicky really needs to get off the TV like ASAP. Plus, I have a neat idea for the Ryback CM Punk match, since Cena, ruiner of all things, can't wrestle. Okay, he just goes into what he thinks the finish should have been. He wrote this before the pay-per-view, obviously, but I like everybody. The Heyman's the obvious choice. It's a great idea, in my opinion. I agree with you, Lou. And then also, we got some other ones. We got one from our friend Choppy84. Or no, I'm sorry. This one wasn't from Choppy84. This is from Carlo D'Angio, and I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Hey guys, thanks for mentioning my response on your show. To answer your question, oh no, this one's from Choppy. To answer your question about it, who should be GM, I think it should be Paul Heyman because of his roles in SmackDown and ECW. It would also be beneficial to Punk to hold on to the WWE title a little bit longer. I agree, Punk. Choppy and everybody seems to go with Paul. And then finally, Carlo D'Angio, Mick Foley or JBL for general manager. I kind of like his idea. I like the Mick Foley idea.
I can tell. I like the JBL. I mean, JBL is probably one of my favorite guys in the business. He does awesome on the commentary. That's the only reason I would not want him to be, because if they take him off, they'll probably put Booker back on. Yeah. You know, you have your good parts and your bad parts about it. But I think JBL.
You want to agree with the JBL?
I agree with JBL. How about you? Mick Foley, right?
Nah, I'm going to go off the page a little bit. And it's kind of for the same reason you're going with. JBL is doing so good as an announcer that why don't we bring Jerry the King Lawler back as the GM? That way, you know, if his health isn't that great, he doesn't have to be on TV much. You can more monitor what he does so he doesn't, you know, have another heart attack, work him back in. I mean, eventually maybe he goes back to the GM, to the announce table. Maybe not. Maybe they keep him in a role where he's not as strenuous as the GM or as the announce table.
Like that.
But now let's go with the question of the week for this week. Now this is based off of, we're coming up on Survivor Series, and now at most Survivor Series you have your traditional 5-on-5 teams. What we want to know is, what is your dream team? The 5 guys you would put on your team if you could pick absolutely anybody.
Anybody, prime of their career, any way you want to do it.
Yeah. Could be anybody. Could it be in a team they already used? If you liked one of the teams, like the $1 Million team back in the day, the Shawn Michaels Knights. If you like those, that was your favorite, go ahead and put that out there. But let us know what you think. Hit us up on our Twitter. Hit us up on our Facebook. Put it down where?
Down there.
Down in the comments right below this video.
Boss man for the home run. Sorry.
Every week I gotta put up with this. Even in the boss man costume, he wants to do a stupid little baseball gimmick. Well, now, moving on to our Raw show of the night, we had the first segment of the night was CM Punk and Mick Foley coming out to the ring doing a promo, which, speaking of SummerSlam, led to Punk challenging, or Survivor Series, Punk challenging Foley to a classic Survivor Series 5-on-5 match, which later on they announced their teams. We'll get to that a little bit later. It was a good promo. These guys work really well together. I'm kind of happy that they're giving us more of it after the last one. And coming off the promo, Ryback came out, which led to Ryback versus JTG. Squash match, nothing really special about it. The next match I had really high hopes for. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, though.
The Orton and Wade Barrett match. Yeah, I thought it was okay. I like the finish.
It was okay. I thought it could have been better. Plus, it was in a position where Orton doesn't need to beat Wade to make him look any better. But if Wade Barrett beats Orton, he looks like $1 million.
But when we get to later on in the show, I think that's why they had Orton go over.
Right, and then we're going to combine a couple matches together. The 3 different tag team matches they had, just to save some time. The tag team division's looking really solid. We had the tag team champions, Team Hell No versus the Primetime Players in a solid match. Ryder and Santino versus the 3-man band.
Do you know that I'm kind of like the class clown?
And then we had Ray and Sin Cara versus the Rhodes Scholars. I kind of like what they're doing, building the tag team division again. We didn't even see the Usos or the Epico and Primo on the show, so 2 other tag teams other than the ones we've seen on the show. I like that they're building back to the tag division.
Me too. And that's really what helped out the Attitude Era. I mean, a lot of people take away from the tag team, for a long time, but, you had Edge and Christian, you had your Dudleys.
The New Age Outlaws.
New Age Outlaws. Kane and Mankind, I thought was a good team.
Head Cheese.
There was tons of tag teams in that era that's kind of gotten lost in a shuffle, and people have forgotten about them.
The Smoking Guns.
You keep naming them, and they were parts of history.
After that, we had the Vicky Guerrero, John Cena, that they're ripping off TNA with the Claire Lynch angle, basically. And all night they were teasing with segments with Vicky and Cena and Vicky and AJ, Cena and AJ.
And the funny thing is, remember we compared Claire Lynch to John Cena, the way she shows emotion in the ring and stuff like that? And what do? They rip off the shittiest gimmick TNA ever had.
Oh yeah, I don't see anything good. I kind of hope that it does end up that Cena is cheating with her, because then it'll give a little bit more depth to his Superman character.
Loyalty, respect.
Yeah, respect that, John. We already know you cheated on your wife, so why don't you be having an affair on the show? So
exactly.
You could ask Tara about that.
Exactly, you flat forehead. Sorry.
And then we had my favorite match of the night was Antonio Cesaro versus Kofi Kingston.
Too bad I got interrupted. That's all I can say.
Again, it's 2 guys that I think absolutely are the future of the business.
Yeah, and you know what? I wouldn't have been hurt if either man went over, if they had finished a match. I wouldn't have felt like they were getting robbed, because both guys are white hot right now. Yeah. And I've kind of laid off of being a fan of Kofi, but I really picked back up, and I've been really high on Cesaro since he's came out.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
They brought respect back to their belts.
Exactly. And then, well, the Intercontinental belt, they've been booking a lot better since about last year. They booked the last about 5 or 6 runs really good.
Just that Santino with the U.S. title really was killing it.
Yeah,
I was through the trash.
And then, what, you would have done Medusa?
Yeah.
Then we had AJ Lee versus Beth Phoenix, kind of AJ's punishment, which halfway after AJ wins, Vicky restarts a match so Beth can win, and then ends up that Vicky fires Beth after the show just so Beth could be wrote off of TV because her contract is up.
That was about it on that match.
And the shame of it is the best woman they got in the division is gone now.
And that's it. You know, they've really turned the division into a joke.
It's been a joke for a while, but you had a few people there that made it look good. Beth being one of them, and Natalie Neidhart being the other. I mean, AJ Lee's not bad in the ring, and Caitlin's getting better, but neither one of them are on the level of Beth Phoenix.
Then we had the Sheamus promo that they were building up all night, which I got tired of seeing. The guy that loses the world title, they're building up. Oh, Sheamus is coming out. You know, why don't you build up your new champion?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Show by any means. I mean, or high on him. I like him. I respect him. But really, you're shitting on the guy that just won the world title for the ex-world champion.
Yeah.
You know, you could tell who rides with Hunter.
Well, you know what the thing of it is, though? They're setting up for the rematch at Survivor Series, as you've seen by them not being in either team on the Survivor Series teams later on in the show. So they have to build another solid championship match to put on the show, because basically every other champion's
every championship is
tied up in one match. Mm-hmm. Coming off of that, we had another John Cena. After all night, John being the bad guy, the adulterer, he came out to present the Susan G. Komen Foundation with their $1 million check.
I would have done it different. I would have had this before everything.
Yeah.
You know, that way when people start kind of booing him and stuff like that later on, it counts more and it helps more. The other thing I would have done, and it sounds messed up, don't hate me, but I would have had Punk come in there and do a run-in on the whole thing. But I'm the WWE champion. Why don't I wear pink?
Well, they're building to a Ziggler versus Cena feud, so Cena's not in the title picture for a little while, which is good.
Yeah.
Then we had Alberto Del Rio versus Justin Gabriel. Another tremendous match from Justin Gabriel. Alberto Del Rio is really starting to pick up the WWE style.
That's a guy, if you would have told me a year ago I've been high on him, I would have told you were high on crack. And don't get me wrong, he was good, but he just wasn't my style. Yeah. He, like you said, he's adapted to the American style. He still keeps a little bit of the lucha style. Honestly, I think he just needs a solid finisher other than just a cross arm breaker. Something different. You don't always have to have a submission. I mean, don't get me wrong, submissions are nice, but I'd rather see him do something like, other than a backstab, or something kind of, a power move, or something quick. Would you agree?
I definitely agree with that. I always think that you should have multiple finishers anyway. I mean, anybody that's anybody really did, other than Flair. And Triple H never really had more than one finisher. No, he had that submission he did, the Indian Deathlock.
And that was a tremendous move. That's one of my favorite submissions, to be honest.
I mean, if you look at it, Kurt Angle has two. Cena only has one. Punk has a few different.
He has two. He has the Attitude Adjustment and the STFU.
That's right. Punk has a few different ones. He has the Anaconda Vice, the Go to Sleep. I still think they should let him finish a couple matches with the Macho Man Elbow.
Yeah.
And he has the head kick. He's used the head kick to finish matches too. But
Brian has
everything.
I mean, that guy could finish you with everything. And just they like the label lock. I mean, cattle mutilation was awesome.
Yeah, and when he was in Ring of Honor, he was Mr. Small Package for a little while. That was funny as crap. You got this guy that could put on every move in the book, and he beat you with a small package. To me, it just was funny. Yeah. I don't know. Then our main event segment was the announcing of Mick Foley's team and CM Punk's team. And CM Punk's team, they came out and announced first. It was The Miz,
then the Rhodes Scholars.
The Rhodes Scholars, of course CM Punk, and then
Alberto
Del Rio.
Alberto Del Rio, which they didn't mention that the last Survivor Series, that's the man he beat
for the title, and went on this tremendous run, which will be over a year by the time this pay-per-view comes on. And then Foley comes out and announces his team, which is Team Hell No, Kofi Kingston.
Damn it.
I can't remember.
Kane.
Kane, Kofi Kingston, Daniel Bryan.
Randy Orton.
Randy Orton, that's it. And then he pulls the swerve and said he's not in the match. It's Ryback in the match.
So they're still trying to put Ryback in the main event spot. I would have still liked to see Foley, but I understand it. I mean, it would probably been a murderer's case. But it would have been kind of cool, you know. How's it going to be Team Foley? Why not be Team Ryback now?
Yeah, it should be, if they're gonna do it like that, it should be Team Foley versus Team Heyman, the managers of the teams.
Exactly. Which I think we're going to see a lot of outside stuff between him and Heyman. I really do. I mean, would you have done anything different?
No, I like the teams as they were. I think they should have. I think I would have rather seen Mark Henry come back and be on CM Punk's team, so he has a big guy. Because Kane has, or Mick Foley has two monsters on his team.
Kane and Ryback. You know, usually it's the bad guys with the monsters. But anything else you got to say?
That's about all I really have over this stacked show we got this week. I'm George Coles.
Gary Rhodes.
And this has been the Raw, or the WWE version of Heel Heat.
You'll be serving hard time.